Well, hey guys, welcome back to Free Thinking. I'm Montel, and today we'll be talking about something everyone can relate to. I'm talking food. Food is the foundation of our existence, culturally rich, but often misunderstood when it comes to how it affects our health. Over the last 70 years, we've drifted so far from eating what's genuinely good for us that it's wreaked havoc on our collective well being. But today, we're going to be breaking down and exploring it in depth from where we want to stray to, more importantly, how we can find our way back to better health, especially through food. Joining us is someone on a profound mission to inspire healing through food, Dr. Randall Hansen. He's an educator, author, and health advocate. His latest book, The Healing Revolution Diet, is about helping people reconnect with their health and live their most authentic lives. Dr. Hansen, thank you so much for being a part of the show today, sir.
Thank you, Montel. It's so good to see you again. And I just have to start by saying, I just thank you for your decades of service to humanity, first in the military, and then now all you're doing with all your programs. So thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for what you're doing, because we both know that the way we eat today didn't just happen overnight. Can you break it down for us a little bit and let our listeners know where we went awry and when it comes to nutrition and our food systems?
Let me just start off with two statistics that might shock the viewers, and then we'll go from there. But the two ingredients that the vast majority of us consume every year, if we're on the standard American diet, which is the fast food, packaged food, frozen foods, all those things, we eat 80 pounds of soybean oil each person every year. That's about a half a cup of soybean oil a day. And then we eat, and estimates vary, but about 150 pounds of excess refined sugars annually. That's about 3/4 of a cup a day of sugar that we consume. And that, if that's not an example of how our food system has gone totally down the wrong way, uh, hopefully that's a wake up call.
Yeah,
Soybean oil. Sorry, go.
no. I was gonna say I was speaking about 2 weeks ago to a group of medical students in Ohio, and somebody had asked me a question, and I remember saying, because this is something that it just struck me crazy. I live in an area in Miami called Brickell, and there are 1,000 restaurants within 5 blocks. Maybe there could be 2,000 within 5 blocks. I'm telling you, everywhere you look, there's a restaurant. So I had a new restaurant open literally at the base floor of my building, which was a Cuban-based restaurant. And I was like, well, let me walk in here and see what they got, because they might have some good stuff. And I looked at their menu, and I was like, there were quesadillas and things like that. And they seemed like they were making fresh stuff in the back. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at them. They're chopping up the chicken, they're chopping up the cilantro, they're chopping up all the vegetables. I'm going, okay, this looks like it's gonna be cool. So I maybe have a quesadilla, and I know that's not necessarily the healthiest thing in the world. However, at least it's got what looked like healthy ingredients. And I tell you, I'm a person who I stopped drinking soda, any type of soda. I drink carbonated water, but I don't drink soda. So I mean, and I'll tell you, if I had to put my mind to it, I've had maybe one soda a year for the last, I'm telling you, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, I just don't drink it anymore. And but I looked to the right of me, and I got this spicy dish getting ready to come off the grill. I looked to the right of me, and it was like, all these things that they call them Mexican Coke. You know what I'm talking about? Supposedly that has
Yeah.
real sugar in it rather than high fructose corn syrup. So I looked over and I was going, this is going to burn the devil out of my mouth. I think I could get away with one. I walked over. I walked over to open up the case, and there's this. I can't even tell you what the flavor was. It was some strawberry banana thing, or strawberry pineapple thing in there, and the bottle was probably 9 ounces. I read the back. I think it said it was 9.5, maybe 10 ounces. Odd shaped bottles, kind of small. So I'm looking at the bottle, and I turned it over to where the ingredients are, and I came to 56 grams of sugar. I went, what? It's the smallest bottle of soda. I mean, it's like one of those little tiny Cokes. 56 grams of sugar. And, I'm doing a speech last week, and I said, now you think about this for a second, folks. Divide that number by 4, and that's the number of teaspoons. So 56 grams of sugar is 14 teaspoons of sugar. So watch me now. Here's my hand. Here's my glass. Boom, 1, boom, 2, 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Now think about it. At the end, I'm going to have this much sugar in the bottom of the glass, and then I'm going to pour water on top of that and drink it. Really? Are you kidding me? And most people don't know that. And I swear to you, Doc, there was a taller bottle next to it that had 74 grams of sugar.
Oh,
Now, who is drinking this crap?
that's what I tell people. I say, don't look at the front of the label. They lie on the front of the label. Could say natural, could say plant-based, could say heart healthy, but those mean nothing. Go to the back of the label and look at the sugar, because that sugar is hidden in almost every product. Not even beverages are the worst,
It,
but everything.
it blows my mind. You go to the grocery store, there's sugar in milk. Why do we
Yeah.
put sugar in milk? I don't get it. I do not get it at all.
I was just looking at a post from a healthy school lunch, and the lunch itself looked pretty good. They had veggies. No, I didn't see any horrible gravy or odd ingredients there, but they had a non-fat chocolate milk, a little half pint. And in that half pint of non-fat, and this is a problem with non-fat and low-fat, maybe we'll get into this too, but non-fat chocolate milk had 22 grams of sugar. It was the second ingredient.
But if the carton's this big, that means that the
Right.
sugar, if you pile it up, is half the what's in there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane. I mean,
It
let's
is.
back up a little bit. Let's talk about,
Yeah.
because I can remember. Let me tell you something. I can remember growing up as a kid, and I think I remember a time where a 12-ounce bottle of soda had less than 16 grams of sugar in it. I think it had probably around 14, 12 to 14 in it. But now you look at that 12 ounce bottle of soda, and it's 24 to 30, depending on what the brand is, right? So when did we? I mean, it's just like they just started slipping more and more and more and more soda in there. But was there? There was I guess, a concerted effort to make this happen, to make this change.
Yeah. So if we back up in our time machine and we look at all this really started in the 1950s. President Eisenhower had a heart attack in office, and heart attacks back then were somewhat rare, and certainly from a virile military leader president, we would the America went crazy, like, whoa, wait a second, the president can have a heart attack. What about the rest of us? And that began this kind of crazed search for what causes heart disease. And one researcher, for better or worse, and I don't think there are a lot of conspiracy theorists. I don't think it was a conspiracy. I think it was just a researcher error. But he did this research, and as we look back at it now, he determined that fat was the cause of heart disease, not sugar. And what he did to sort of massage the data is he had sugar in two different categories that he kept separate. So one was sugary desserts and breads and things like that. But then the second category was sugary drinks. And he discounted the sugary drinks and just looked at the sugary foods. And in that case, fat had a slightly higher correlation than sugar. And so he said, oh, of course, fat's it. And what happens is food manufacturers started scrambling. How do we get rid of fat and what do we replace it with? And this doesn't count with the beverage thing, but this is what happened. So to replace the fat, they added sugar and then and added chemicals to thicken it, to make it thicker, what fat does to products. And so we started having sugar introduced in the 70s, 80s, and then beyond. And we had all these no-fat products. Like, I don't remember, I think we're close to the same age. They had Snackwells back in the 90s that were no fat and just horrible chemical, horrible ingredients. But our sweet tooth started getting used to the more sugar in the products. And so the beverage companies had to keep up, because imagine if you drank a Coke and you're like, oh, this isn't that sweet, you'd have a problem. So all these soda manufacturers had to up their sugar content as well. Plus,
Yeah,
they were also changing.
but not only
Good.
did they up it in soda, they upped it in, like you said, in bread. I mean, come on now, bread has sugar in it, crackers has
Yeah.
sugar in it. Every
Yes.
single thing that we eat that is it comes in a box has sugar in it, and it just
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't even understand. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Yet, I mean, I try to navigate the grocery store as best I can, but it's
Well,
all,
let's talk about the
huh? Go ahead.
yeah. Let's talk about the grocery store. So, yeah, it's a nightmare. I was talking to a group of people about why people aren't more aware of the problems in the grocery store, and one person in the audience said, "Well, we have a social contract. If it's sold in the grocery store, it's got to be healthy." And I was like, "Wow, I understand that, but yeah, 2/3 of the foods in the grocery store, mostly that middle area of the grocery store, is all filled with sugars. The bread,
Worthless.
sauces,
Worthless.
everything, worthless. They also have added chemicals. They have the seed oils that we've talked about a little bit. But then, so people say, oh, well, eat on the outskirts, eat where the produce is. But then we have the problems of, and I know you've talked in the past with a couple other people, we have the problem of industrial farming, and so many of these products are grown in soil that is depleted because of the just every year more and more nutrients being taken out by the plants, and they often are coated in pesticides. So now you have to look at organic, and then but organic costs more, and organic isn't necessarily the safest thing.
Right.
But then you switch to the meat area, and I'm a big meat guy, so this is not me saying don't eat meat, but if you've ever looked at a picture of a feedlot or a chicken house where they are in tight quarters, they're given antibiotics routinely, partly because they're in such tight quarters to help keep the flock healthy, or the cattle healthy, but also antibiotics are fattening agents, so they give them antibiotics to fatten them up because the more they weigh, the more money they make per pound. And so it becomes this supermarket is this landmine of what's the person supposed to do if we're trying to eat healthy. And of course, yes, real ingredients are the most important thing. So even if you have to buy conventional fruits and vegetables, start there. The conventional meat's not the greatest, but start there, because as soon as you're buying prepackaged stuff, that's where the sugars come in, the seed oils come in, and there are thousands of chemicals that companies are allowed to put in. And it's a system where called GRAS, GRAS, where generally accepted uh, process, but the producers get to decide. And there's no government that researches all these chemicals. So there's also just all these questionable chemicals in the product. So it does become a big thing. So one of my mantras is, as much as you can, eat locally. Find a local farmers market, find a co-op, find something that is selling products from local farmers and ranchers, and it's a win-win. It's a win for the consumer, and it's a win for the farmers and ranchers that kind of depend on us.
Well, I mean, but for the average person, just getting through the day, driving 10 miles to work and driving back, finding that moment to get to the local market before it closes, or trying to get there once a week. You know what I mean? Your life can be kind of really centered around trying to find decent food. I try my best to, I'm the cook at home, and I try my best to cook for my wife. What I feel are healthier versions of what are out there, but I know I'm not doing the best job that I could do. I know I'm not. I wish I could, but it's like, I try to buy, I try to make, every couple of weeks I make a good vegetable soup. And in that vegetable soup, I use only, vegetable stock or vegetable broth. I buy no chicken or beef broth. And, I'll try to buy as many fresh vegetables as I can, try to reduce the amount of condiments that I put in there to flavor it, but the flavor's there. But I look back at it and think that, what I'm using, baby carrots, and I'm using, some spinach that I will actually freeze myself. And then I will, get some frozen green beans maybe because I flash frozen, and I check them out to make sure they are. And then, I use a little zucchini and, some potatoes. but the ingredients themselves, like you say, aren't grown in decent enough farms that I know they're using sustainable. I don't know what they're using as a sustainable process to make sure that they don't deplete the soil. It's tough, man. It's a hard one. You spend your entire life trying to figure out what you're going to put in your mouth.
And I get it. It's tough, especially if there's only one parent in the household or one adult in the household, or you're just working as many hours as you can just to be able to, you know, afford the things in life. And it's so easy on the way home to say, "Oh, I'm just going to stop at this fast food place because for $20 I can feed my family and I don't have to worry about thinking what I'm going to cook or things like that." And so, one of the things I also stress is there's a statistic that just blows my mind because I grew up in a family where like, I didn't even know there was canned soup until I went to college, and I didn't know there were bake mixes until I went to college because my mom cooked everything from scratch. And of course, that was also a different time period, different generation. But um, so few people actually even cook at home anymore, cook regularly at home, and I think it's a lost art, and it's not that difficult. I purposely try to share recipes that are under an hour prep and cook, ideally some that are 30 minutes or less. Of course, there are also crock pots, but then you have to then you have to get into meal planning. And I know all this adds some stress and time. But again, I think what we've also lost is that food can be an investment in our health. And if we take that, kind of as our mantra, it maybe says, okay, well, I need to devote a little more time to this than I was because, you know, I I don't want my children to get sick or my grandchildren to get sick or unhealthy.
Yeah, I try to do the same. I mean, I literally I cook a lot with a pressure cooker. I like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the
Great.
speed, and you can, and does it take a lot of prep? It does in some ways, but it's not that much. I mean, matter of fact, I'm literally I do a show right now that's called Military Makeover, where we make over veterans' homes, and we're going to probably add a cooking section to that, and I'm going to add a cooking section to another show that I do called Bouncing Act, where I'm just going to show people how you can take those things. It's not that hard. You can just if you just kind of think about the sourcing of what you're using. And for a while, I went kind of almost. I went vegan for a little while. Then I went to, I guess, what you call as a pescatarian for a while, and then I'm going back to eating meat. But I try not to eat meat every single day. I try not to eat anything every single day.
I just want to say that's what I recommend to everybody is find, you don't have to stick to one diet. You don't have to stick to any kind of so-called diet plan. You need to find what works for you. And it might, like you said, it might one year it might be vegetarian, but then now I'm kind of missing salmon or whatever, and so now I'll add fish back, and then if it fits, if it works for you, works for your brain, for your gut, keep doing it. Something else comes along, well, maybe now I'll add meat back to my diet. So it's just finding your place, and so I love that you're going to add these cooking segments to these shows because it isn't that hard. I think people think, oh, I need to do a Rachel Ray or whoever 7-course meal, and that's just not the way it
No,
is. You,
not.
yeah,
And I like the whole idea about stews and soups. I mean, I really do. I enjoy eating soup. I don't mind cooking. It's not a tough journey for me. I can get it done, and it's easy. All you got to do is, I'll get those extra vegetables. I spend, an extra. I go get a whole bag of potatoes, and instead of cutting up just 4 or 5 of them, I'll chop them all up. Then I will take them and put them in bags and put them in the freezer. Then I know when I need a potato, dump some potatoes in. I got potatoes. I got carrots. Got what I need. Boom, let's do it and get it done that way. You really believe in the philosophy that food is medicine. Let's talk a little bit about that.
yeah, yeah. It's if we look at any of these health statistics that we've seen, and really from the 1980s onward, if you look at any chart, 80, obesity, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, uh, hypertension, they're all kind of low level. And then 1980s and beyond, we just see this steep rise because what we're eating today, I call imposter foods. They look like the food we knew, um, but they're not the food anymore that we grew up with. Someone just shared with me a pumpkin pie that was a store bought. I don't know what store, and I'm probably glad, so don't slander anybody. But
Right.
the pumpkin pie, that it was sugar, then glucose sugar, corn syrup, and then pumpkin, and then eggs, and something else, and then the spices. And it's like, that's not medicine. So food as medicine is, and I love that you had that young guy Steven on doing his hydroponic gardens, because I also, one of my big things is, if we can grow even just a little bit of our own food, in an apartment, you could probably still do a windowsill of tomato plants or something like that. Um, if you had a hydroponic system, you could do more than that. But I think when we grow a little of our own foods, we not only is it fresher, better. I mean, my tomatoes every summer, I'll eat half of them as I'm picking them, because I grow cherry tomatoes, because I just, that sun kissed, so wonderful. But the hydroponic, where we're putting the nutrients in the water, or the regenerative system that we're now slowly building up in smaller farms. Regenerative organic systems are the absolute best, where the soil is being enhanced all the time. All these nutrients are in the soil, and when they're not, when they're in, when we're growing it in dirt, you don't have those nutrients. And so food, we don't need 10,000 supplements every day or 4 prescriptions if we eat the right foods. And the stunning thing that we're seeing now is people changing their diets to away from that sort of standard American diet, ultra processed foods, to real food, real ingredients, like the soups you're talking about, the stews, all these things. They can reverse their diabetes. They can reverse their hypertension, their high blood pressure. And in some cases, we're even seeing a slight reduction of people that are starting, if they're really caught early on with Alzheimer's, which some people are now calling type 3 diabetes, because again, it's just all the sugar. The body cannot process the amount of sugar we're consuming. And you mentioned high fructose corn syrup. That's the worst offender, because it's actually, um, in sugar, in table sugar, there's two molecules, glucose and fructose. Excuse me. And the fructose is the one that's sort of the toxin to our body, and that buildup causes liver damage, and that leads to insulin resistance, and then diabetes, and all these things. But they can be reversed through diet alone if caught early enough, and it's just astounding. Same thing with obesity. Uh, people, sometimes we need to do more drastic measures, especially if people want faster results. But just changing diet, along with a few other lifestyle things, can have dramatic results. And so that's why I look at food as medicine, because if we get the right kind, and yes, we probably have to cook a lot of it ourselves, but that is, again, back to that investment. We are now, I think, we're at the lowest percentage of our household income being spent on food than ever before. We have higher priorities: the house, the jewelry, the travel, and it's like, and we take health for granted. And so it's just a matter of, until that health crisis comes along, then you're going to be like, oh, I should have done this as an investment. So
Right.
just start thinking of it now as an investment.
Talk a little bit more about what you've seen people do in transforming the health. What kinds of results have you witnessed yourself? Again.
Just amazing things. Like I said, I do have several stories I share in the book, but also I've talked to thousands of others in the process. And I think the biggest thing is, I think people think that one of these metabolic issues, uh, diabetes, hypertension, uh, are need to only be a pill. And so we see more and more people taking pills, and that's great for short term if you're in a crisis state and you need that taken care of. But I have seen people get off their hypertension medication. I've seen people get off their statins, for
Cholesterol.
yeah, cholesterol. Thank you.
Sure.
And I've seen people get off even get off insulin completely just through diet, just through changing diet.
And you hear some of it, now that we have the internet and so robust with TikTok and all these other things, there are all these people that are now, coming on and giving the warning signs, but also doing it kind of in I think, a way that's not necessarily as helpful as some think it is. Now you can read 7,000 cholesterol stories, and out of 7,000, 5,000 will say cholesterol was never bad, but cholesterol can be bad. And you're getting such a flood of information. How do you discern what's right, what's wrong?
Ooh, that is the $100 question or the $1,000,000 question,
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Montel.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, my wife just had blood tests, got the results back today, and of course they measured the usual high, HDL, LDL for cholesterol. But what we're finding is we need to refine the test because it's not LDL by itself, but there's a subset of LDL that is sort of problematic. But the bigger issue, but anyway,
Hmm.
the problem you raise is so true, and I know I've done the research, but it's really hard to for the average person because yeah, look at eggs. Eggs were demonized. They don't eat, don't eat eggs. Cholesterol is a danger. Don't eat saturated fats or beef because that cholesterol. And then someone else, carnivore people will be, oh no, eat as much beef as you want every day. Eat pounds and pounds of beef. And so to me, it's looking at beyond just one post, looking at their profile. Uh, for me, one of my favorite people that's a mentor, not directly because I just casually know him, but it's Dr. Robert Lustig, and he got into this whole space because he watched all his child patients through the years get heavier and heavier, and obesity just increasing dramatically, and he got so concerned. And I thought you were going to say this earlier, but one of the things we learn is that doctors get maybe one day of nutrition in all of medical school. And so they don't really know about nutrition. So Lustig said, I knew nothing about it. So I had to kind of relearn. But his book is called Metabolical, and a little high up there for some people. But just look at what their credentials are, or what they've written, or what they're writing besides that one post. Uh, I will say there are also a lot of dietitians that still are giving advice from 15 years ago. They haven't updated, so I still see about 2010 there was a landmark study that said saturated fats have no connection or very little connection to heart disease. Finally settling this matter that's no, it's not saturated fat, it is indeed sugar. Insulin resistance via sugar. But still today I'll see people say make sure you buy that low fat product, or make sure you have that lean meat. And uh, healthy fat is probably the number one macro ingredient I would say that we need in our bodies. Then protein, and then I don't even call them carbs. I call it fiber because people get afraid of carbs. But I just lump carbs all into the fiber category. But so it's a matter of just I'd say go beyond that. So back to your question, go beyond that one post. Pull back, look at their profile, or look at what they've written in greater detail, any research studies they've done. But that is my big frustration right now, is that it's a little bit wild west in terms of the advice being given.
And here, I'm not asking you to be political. I'm just asking you to think in terms of who we just put in, or who is being suggested and nominated for a very critical position. Kennedy, and he's taken some stands on lots of things. Some of them have been, you know, I say I'm opposite of what he thinks, and others I think I believe in. But unfortunately, when you have the bully pulpit, you get to say things that a lot of people then run after and think that that's got to be a fact. And what do you think about, number one, that's that appointment, and number two, Are you afraid that people will start taking some things that are fringe ideas and incorporating them into their diets where they don't really need to do that?
Yeah, great question. I love it. Thank you. I support. Uh, I love that health is being discussed at a national level. I hate that it's been politicized, and so I support Maha in spirit, but I can't say the name. I can't
Sure.
say it out loud because it's political, and I'm not political in that way. I want people just to get back to being, just get on a health journey and get back to living a better life. And so I think some of the things he's going to do, he's talking about, uh, sound promising. We've talked about these vegetable oils. If you look at, and I'll just take a second here because this is something that's critical, and I think I've been on a wellness journey for 20 plus years, but I only learned about vegetable oils probably about 10 years ago. So I'm, kind of slow in the process too. So I don't blame anyone else who doesn't know this. But these canola, vegetable oil, which is most of the time soybean oil, sunflower, safflower, peanut, missing one or two others, corn. Uh, uh, these are all, they take the seed, they grind it up, they put solvents on it, they bleach it, they do a disinfectant, and they come out as this oil that were really made for industrial uses. Like I could take my vegetable oil and put it in my chainsaw, and it would work fine. And to think that we're ingesting this, but part of the problem is that the government subsidizes corn and soy to just great amounts of money. And so soybean oil is the cheapest oil on the market, which is why we are consuming, so many pounds of it per year, because it's in, like sugar, it's in almost every
And
product.
I am shocked that, like I didn't know this until, oh, maybe 3 months ago. Somebody pointed out the fact that, when you go buy a bottle of, let's say, extra virgin olive oil, you think you're getting
Oh,
100% olive oil. But when you look at that oil, it's probably less than 10 to 15% olive oil and all these other oils that you were talking about all mixed together.
yeah,
Grapeseed oil.
that,
Well,
yeah,
why do they have the right to do that when I'm trying to eat olive oil?
yeah. That is also one of my biggest frustrations because olive oil and avocado oil are probably the two safest oils. Coconut oil is in there too, but it has an aftertaste. It's some, for a sweet thing that might be okay, but not for something salty. But both avocado oil and olive oil are, so many reports of them being, as you said, diluted, and maybe there's only 10% of that oil, and the rest are the horrible seed oils. One trick that I was told by an expert is if you buy an olive oil and it doesn't have an expiration date on it, it probably is cut with something else, because pure olive oil will go bad at a, I don't want to say a quick rate, but it'll go rancid within, I think, about 6 months to a year, if it's, if especially if you don't keep it in the dark, in a dark glass and all that. And so if you don't have it, if you don't see an expiration date in the oil, that's a big sign. But again, also look at the label. I saw one the other day in the supermarket that said olive oil in massive letters, and then a little asterisk, and at the bottom it said with canola oil, and then you flipped in the back and it did actually state it had both. So they that case they weren't lying. But again, there's that front of the package lying to you, because if you're in a hurry, you grab it. So olive oil, take it, throw it in your cart, and you get home, and then you realize, oh, wait a second, this isn't pure olive oil. So that's a problem, and I don't. Again, if Kennedy can bring in better regulations to the food, uh, I would support that, of course, 100%. If we can get rid of some of the controversy over sugar and seed oils. The sugar lobby, by the way, is one of the most powerful lobbies from all the people I've talked with in the government, which is why we still have, I mean, I'd say most people say we should have at least warning labels on products like this soda that you drank in that store, in that restaurant.
I didn't
And
go.
maybe
Wait,
all
I'll go
sodas.
back. I didn't buy it. I put it back because
Okay, good, good, good. Okay, okay.
I mean, I literally it choked me just reading it. I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Okay,
I'm not
good,
going to
good.
drink this shit. This in my mouth." I just I couldn't do it, man. It's like I
Yeah,
can't. Like
good.
I am a sucker to, another beverage. I won't say its name that I drink. I drink sparingly. My wife likes it a lot. I drink it sparingly. I'll drink maybe half a glass of it. Every what I've been doing lately is I'll put a half a I'll fill a glass up halfway with this particular beverage, then I'll pour water on top of it. And okay, at least I'm reducing the amount I'm consuming in that 1 second. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
try not to just pour it straight in.
And I love that you do the carbonated waters because I think, one of the questions I get a lot is, well, what am I going to drink if I can't drink soda or other sugary drinks, energy drinks or sports drinks? And it's like, well, there are a lot of already carbonated waters that are just with natural fruit flavorings out there.
Or
That
you can get yourself a bottle of
Yep,
Pellegrino, get yourself a bottle of carbonated water, and literally
sure,
I can take a lemon and
yep,
cut that thing in half, put half a lemon in there. It tastes like I'm drinking a
yep,
soda anyway. I've skipped the sugar,
yeah,
but
yeah, exactly,
yeah.
yeah. Or get one of the little carbonated systems and bottle your own or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's so much better. And uh, juices. Let's just come back one more step too. If we look at breakfast, so one of the great lies that was a marketing campaign was breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and that was by General Foods for grape nut cereal. And we still have nutritionists. I saw one post on LinkedIn like last week said, "Don't forget, breakfast is the most important meal of the day." But the problem is, it's usually a cereal with added sugar, and kids cereals are the worst. But adult cereals have a fair amount of added sugar too, something like 20 grams of sugar. And then they have juice, an apple juice, an orange juice, which is pure sugar. They think, oh, I'm getting, it has some slight benefits from the fruit, but when you get rid of all the pulp and all the fiber of the fruit, you're basically just eating sugar water, drinking sugar water. And so we're starting the day with this sugar spike. And then we wonder why we as workers at 10 o'clock in the morning start, nodding off, or the kids are hyperactive when they first get to school and then they start nodding off. And we are literally having dessert for every meal, and we just need to stop that.
Well, and I
It's
think
really out of
the whole idea of this triad, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I just, I have been a person who recently, not recently, no, I'm sorry, for the last easily 14 years of my life, I only eat 2 meals a day. I literally and let's say that's 5 days a week. I eat 2 meals a day. I'll eat breakfast, and that may consist of eggs. Um, I do eat cheese, so it's eggs and cheese, and then I don't have that much bread in the morning, and I won't eat again like I have today. I just had a small bowl of cereal this morning, and my dinner meal will be not that substantial, but it'll be okay. I mean, I've reduced. I probably have cut my intake by 50%. And it wasn't something that I did thinking I'm going to cut my intake by 50%. And I just realized I don't need that much food. I just don't. And I exercise, I work out. I don't need that much. So, like my meal this evening, I made a soup a couple of days ago. It holds up well in the refrigerator. So I'll have a soup this evening for dinner. Um, I might. I've got a place that's down below me that again their bowls they have a lot of sugar, but they're acai bowls. So I'll eat an acai bowl with a lot of vegetables in it, maybe some granola, and that's it for me for the rest of the day. Now, if I decide to snack tonight, it'll be watermelon or pineapple.
perfect, perfect.
I can
Yeah,
knock it out.
yeah. That's the other thing. We still, most of us still eat the 3 meals a day, and if you look at the average plate, back a generation ago is this big, and now we're looking at plate sizes this big. Everything has been supersized. But yeah, I do the same thing. I have 2 meals a day. I have a breakfast, typically eggs, and then I have what we call a dinner. So I'll have a meal about 3 o'clock, which is the big meal of the day. Same thing. I love soups and stews too. That's kind of my forte. But it might be like today. I'm growing a locally raised hamburger, ground beef for hamburgers for the meal, and it'll be on a bed of lettuce, no bun or anything like that. And yeah, I think we eat too much too often, too frequently, snacking in between. And if I have a snack at after my dinner, maybe 6, 7, I get a little hungry. I'll have some macadamia nuts or a piece of fruit like a watermelon, which is a fantastic fruit. So I
Watermelon.
think you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, for me, it's like, I don't, the mid afternoon is not a good time for me to eat. I don't like it. And, so- and for me, I'll try to eat around, I've been sticking to this idea of eating my meals. First off, I don't eat anything when I first get up. I'll drink some water, settle my stomach. I like to sit for a while, maybe have a cup of tea. Then I'll go ahead and have breakfast, and whatever that breakfast might be, it'll be either eggs or, I do have a breakfast cereal, so I'll eat granola or something like that. So I have a granola, which is high in sugar too. I do realize that, but I'll have a granola, and then when it comes time for dinner, I try to eat before the sun goes down. I always have this idea,
yep. That's good.
I want to eat before the sun. If I'm looking out my window and the sun is going down, I got to eat my dinner in me. Get it, try to get it done, and then I will literally, I work out in the afternoons. When we get done, I'll go and do my workout. I'll do a good hour and 50-minute workout. I'll be finished, and so then I come upstairs and I start cooking for the two of us. And like tonight, and I just thought about it. I do have to eat the soup because I don't want soup to go bad, so I'll eat that tonight. But tomorrow, like I'll eat a piece of salmon. I'll have some salmon, and or I'll have some whitefish, some grouper, and then I'll cook myself. And I cook I use a little butter, and I'll use olive oil. So I use those two together. I'll do a drizzle of olive oil and about a tablespoon of butter. Do my pan nice and hot, and I throw some garlic in there, and I'll throw some onions in there, and I'll put my fish on top of it, and I'll flip it over, and that's it. That's for me. And I really started getting into using the air fryer. I kind of like an air fryer also. It seems to work pretty well.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that those are all fantastic things. And I want to stress also that it's not just all about food. So I'm glad you brought up exercise. And one of the things that really is a really recent study that came out, and I've sort of embraced it. And besides the big workout, what I try to do also is every hour I take what I call an exercise snack. So I'll get up from my computer and I'll go and I'll lift weights for 5, 10 minutes, or I'll go up and down my stairs multiple times, or I have a little treadmill. I'll go and treadmill for 5, 10 minutes, or I'll go for a walk outside for the weather. So it's the other problem with this lifestyle is we've become so sedentary. And yes, the weekend warriors, we can do that, but these studies find that if you just exercise on the weekend and you are sedentary the other 5 days or 5 days of the week, you're not getting enough. So I love that you do something daily.
Yeah,
Ideally, also, like I said,
it's funny. I like what you just said. That idea you said about doing something, taking a little exercise break, or getting an exercise snack. I just read something myself also, and I'm going to try. I want to try to every hour on the hour, do 50 of these reps or 50 of those reps. You know what I mean? Just try to
yeah,
add something in. So I make sure that my heart's moving and my blood's moving good. But unfortunately, Doc, I mean, so many people are living in these food deserts now, or in food swamps even. So
yeah,
I mean, you gotta go out further and further and further to search out to get any decent type of food. I mean, what are
yeah.
we gonna do about this?
This is the great inequity, and to me, the right to healthy food is a basic human right that should be the same as clean air and clean water, and we definitely don't have it in this country, and obviously it's worse in other countries. But when we are talking about tens of millions of adults being food insecure, and 7 to 14, depending on the research, children being food insecure, and so food swamps, food deserts are where they're within a certain distance that people could walk easily. They don't need a car or there's a bus, public transportation. That there's not any good food choices or supermarkets. And a food swamp is when there's just tons of fast food, but nothing healthy nearby. So you're forced to, eat. So both situations are horrible because you're forced to eat convenience, gas station food or fast food. And one of the reasons uh, myself and about four other people now are starting this nonprofit that we hope will have some dent, along with other nonprofits that are working in the same space, to try to alleviate this food insecurity and also to try to educate, because I think uh, one of the problems we see is that you ask children, where did that spinach come from? Oh, Walmart. Or where did this come from? Walmart or whatever. And it's like, no, well, no, okay, that's where you bought it, but where did it come from?
Right.
So uh, this was an idea of mine for about 15 years when I went to a high school to give a talk, and they had a greenhouse, and I got all excited. I think, oh man, you guys are growing some of your own food? And the principal kind of gave me this look, and I went, uh-oh. And he's like, well, we used to, but it's been boarded up for the last couple of years, and now we used to use it for storage. And so I connected with this horticulturist about 6 months ago, and he said, it's been a dream of mine to start this nonprofit. And I said, well, mine too, but I've been too lazy about it. And so we just pushed each other. And our goal is to get a cultivation system into as many schools across the country and ideally across the world, but we'll start in this country. A cultivation system where the students are growing some of their own food, and then that food is harvested and used in the school meals. And we hope we can generate yeah, and we hope we can generate enough food that it makes all the meals free, so there's no stigma around who can afford a school meal and who can't. And then ideally, there's enough food once the cultivation system has a couple of years of being in place, that there's excess food that can be used as a co-op for the community, so that the local community can get some fresh foods that they wouldn't normally find in their.
Do you know the singer Taja Seville?
Yes, and I saw that episode. I love what she's doing.
Taja's got an incredible program, and I'm telling you, I don't
Yeah,
understand why more schools and communities don't embrace it, because you could put one of these her systems in every single school across the country, and within
yeah,
1 year you'd have a growing cycle where literally the community can just come up and pick up free food. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Why not? But I think you talked about it, and I earlier, I think there's a nefarious group in this country who want to keep us addicted to this garbage that they make. It's the reason why they produce it. That's the reason why they put so much sugar in it, knowing that it's going to addict children, and down the road, who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
One interesting statistic you might not know, or fact you might not know, but in the 80s, several of the tobacco companies bought some of the big food companies. Um, RGR bought Nabisco, and Philip Morris bought Kraft. And what they did was bring in their tobacco marketing to the food marketing, and they brought in. There's a great book. I think it's called The Bliss Point. But the idea was they hired all these chemists to transform the food. So that was the real beginning of this transformation of foods, to find the right chemical balance, and it is mostly chemicals. It's not natural flavors. To get that point where so back to the Lay's commercial where you can't just eat one. I think that's what their slogan was back in the day.
Yep.
Well, this bliss point does that. So you eat whatever it is. It could be bread. Like we said, it's in everything. So it could be bread, it could be a cracker, it could be a cookie, but you eat one and it's like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Have another and have another. And what they also did at the same time is they stripped the fiber from these foods. So you don't have that alert saying, I'm satiated, I'm full. So you have another and you have another. And all of a sudden that bag of chips is gone, that package of cookies is gone. And then that starts this guilt cycle. And it's just we have so messed up our food system, and it's
When
going to take.
you were talking about the fact that the cigarette companies bought them, but if you go back and you think about cigarettes, and this is something I was completely blown away. It didn't put two and two together until maybe about 6 months ago, when I started looking at some of the old ads, and we realized that our government shoves cigarettes down our throats. Our government forced the military to put a pack of cigarettes in every single MRE, every single support kit that our soldiers took to war during World War II, Vietnam, Korea, they were shoving cigarettes down people's throats, acting as if a cigarette was more calming, could make you a better shot. It's like, are you kidding me? And then when you look at that same group of people who had that mantra, now they've taken over food, you recognize what they were trying to do again. And that's just addict you and make you, another, mouse in a habit trail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there are, I'd say, about 15% of the population probably has a real addiction to ultra processed foods that they can't break on their own. They actually get withdrawal symptoms if they pull back, and so it is a challenge. I mean, if you want to go healthy, and especially if you've been on the standard American diet, I suggest just really small steps, like
Yep.
start your day by not drinking that Coke or that soda,
All right.
and just take it, one day at a time. Don't try to get rid of all the sugar today or all the ultra processed foods, because
It'll
it
never
just can't
happen. Yeah, it's
never
like
happen.
it's like for me, I kind of, I don't know. Well, COVID, I think messed up a lot of people when it came to their diets. But first off, let me go back one more time before we run out of time. Throw out the name of the book, Doc,
Ah, yeah, the Healing Revolution diet. Thank you.
and where can people go to get it?
Amazon. It's in Kindle and paperback.
Okay. And and now, I mean, I think you just nailed something perfectly by telling people it's all about the small step at a time. I kind of like,
Yeah,
I will tell you, I tried not to eat bread before COVID. I wasn't eating a lot of bread. I was staying away from breads and a lot of that kind of food. And then COVID, man, it was easier to make a sandwich. It just was, and because you didn't want to go out and sit in a restaurant with somebody coughing over here, coughing over there, so you just started bringing in stuff that made it a little bit easier. So now, again, like I told you, I don't drink any soda at all.
wonderful.
And if I may treat myself to one based on depending on what I'm eating. If I'm eating steamed crabs, I used to like a lot of beer, but if I'm eating steamed crabs, then I might have I don't know, I might have a Sprite, but I'll try to stay away from that now by going with the carbonated water and the lemon. And so now my goal over the next couple of months is to try to wean that bread back out of our daily diet. At least I've done so by shifting over and using tortilla, but a flour tortilla is just as bad as a slice of bread. So I've got to now start to kind of figure out a way to kind of like just kind of get this out of me. It's just one thing at a time. And then, I'll shift over to something else later. But I mean, what would you suggest to people who want to try to make that take that first step?
Yeah, I'd say number one, just well, first step could be just to look at what you're buying. If that take it even easier, just say, hey, next time you go shopping, what am I buying, and look at some of the ingredients in the label. And like you, when I first looked at, someone told me bread has sugar in it. I'm like, no, bread cannot have sugar in it. And every bread in the aisle I looked at had sugar. So it blows my mind. But I'd say the easiest thing is to quit the carbonated beverage, quit the sodas and the juices and the energy drinks and the sports drinks, and just do carbonated water. Water. I do a lot of electrolytes because I also deal with muscle cramps. So the electrolytes help with that.
Sure.
But yeah, anything that's you can still drink coffee and tea, but just do it either black or and we could get into a whole discussion of artificial sweeteners, which we probably won't go on. Don't have enough time, but
I gotta tell
try to
you,
do it without it.
get rid of all that mess. That's the one I'm talking
Yeah,
about. I drink
yeah,
coffee. Well, now my coffee consumption has gone down. Where I used to drink a lot. I used to drink a lot of coffee, and I was one of those people who put a little cream in it. And I said, I'll stay away from the sugar. I'll put a little cream in it. And I realized I don't need cream. So now, when I do drink coffee, and it's only a couple days a week, I drink my coffee black. I drink tea black. I don't add any sugar to anything. I try to avoid that as best I can, and that's probably where a lot of people start. And that's much easier than you think, because if you really think about it, especially those people listening in right now, I mean, what are you drinking the coffee for? Are you drinking the coffee for the sugar, or are you drinking the coffee because you like the coffee taste? I happen to like the taste of coffee, so if you knock the sugar off, you start to realize, hey, this isn't a bad beverage.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I've seen people where, they just take that sugar canister and just pour it in, and it's like, yeah, are you drinking sugar? You like the sugar or the coffee?
Correct. What do you really want? Do you want the sugar or the
Yeah,
coffee? If you want the coffee,
yeah.
drink the coffee. Skip the sugar. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second thing I would say is just do what we were talking about earlier, is just start looking at, well, what's a simple recipe for making a soup or a stew that I can buy the ingredients, not buy the canned soup or stew, but make my own. And I make it like on weekends or my days off. So on the weekends I'll make a big batch of soup, and I have glass containers, and I'll freeze several of them for future. And I'll put a couple in the refrigerator like you do, or I'll make a big roast, a chicken or a turkey or whatever, and then I have multiple meals for the rest of that week when I don't have as much time.
Right.
But I'd say just start cooking a little bit more from home would be the second step. First step, get rid of the sugary things, sugary beverages, and then just try cooking or making more stuff from scratch.
Dr. Hansen, I can't thank you enough, sir, for being a part of the show today. And of course, I barely got through half the questions I wanted to ask you. So you got a seat here. Anytime you want to come back and talk nutrition, I'm ready to roll with you. Okay.
Me too. I have all these dates I still want to talk about. So next time, hopefully, we can
Let's do
dig,
that.
dig
Let's get
deeper.
into some more.
Okay.
One more time though, if people want your website, is there a website they can go to just to
Yes, it's healingrevolutiondiet.com, or you can go to my personal website, randallshansen.com, which will lead you to my other websites as well.
thank
Or find me on LinkedIn.
my friend? Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
This is really an important topic. I'm going to cover it over and over and over again, and I'd love to have you be one of the participants helping me do that. Okay.
I would love that too. You are my favorite person, Montel.
Well,
So
I
thank you.
appreciate that, sir. My friend, all my viewers would appreciate it also. And you guys tuning in to Let's Be Blunt, and I'm sorry, not Let's Be Blunt, but tuning in to our free thinking. Keep tuning in. I do have another podcast that's called Let's Be Blunt, so you can tune in that one too. But keep tuning in to free thinking. And if you like what you're seeing, go hit that subscribe button down there, share it with others. Let them know this is a home for where true information resides, okay? Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of the show today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Tune in to the next Free Thinking with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear feedback, so please send us your comments.